Hello and welcome everybody to episode number 8 of DigiTales. And once again, we have a great guest with us. I'm sure a lot of you know him already and he doesn't need introduction. Zarrar Khuhro, a very famous journalist and TV talk show personality. He's got an excellent show every night at 11 p.m. Zarrar
That's
Hatke.
right. That's right.
And it is one of the most entertaining news shows. I call it the show that looks like the old Daily Show with Jon Stewart, but there's three of them.
Okay, man, not worthy. Not worthy. Not worthy.
So, Zarrar, the first question I have for you, and it's the title of this show: Is fake news real, and is it in Pakistan?
Is fake news real? Okay, well, that's a very interesting way to put it. No, absolutely, man, absolutely. I mean, as I say, you're fake news. No, I mean, of course. Look, I mean, also we have to understand. Look, this phenomenon, although I wouldn't use that term, that we call fake news. I mean, there's nothing new about it, right? I mean,
Right.
fake news has probably existed ever since, like, the first Cro-Magnon clubbed the first Neanderthal over the skull. Because I mean, he stole my mammoth meat. I mean, maybe the poor guy didn't steal mammoth meat, but you wanted to do
Right.
that because you needed to justify smashing said Neanderthal over the head, because you wanted his
Right.
head or whatever, right? The only thing that's really different now, and this is a factor really of technology and the world we live in, is
Right.
the speed and determination with which you can spread it, right? I mean,
Okay.
आसान अल्फाज में मतलब पहले तो आप मतलब अपने पड़ोसी को बोलते थे, पड़ोसी दूसरे पड़ोसी को बोलता था, by the
Right.
time it spread across, like, the Greek city states, it would take some time,
Right.
अब है कि मैं यहाँ पे बैठा हुआ हूँ, मैंने कह दिया कि यार ये जो फैजान है ना यार, इसने इतने पैसे खाए हैं कि आपकी सोच है, and I put
Right.
in like a random picture of Faizan, looking happy, and I just disseminate that. So good luck
Right.
trying to stop that, right?
Yeah, that's true. And so you're saying that fake news is real and it's been around forever. It's just that now it's turbocharged and it's super speedy, and you can literally get fake news out to millions of people within
Yeah.
instant, like a second.
Yeah, that, I mean, look, there's a very old saying that the truth, a lie can circle the globe twice by the time the truth has put its pants on, and I mean, and you will find this, there's a Pashto saying as well, for example, by the time the truth gets out of its house, the lies have burned down 5 villages or something like that,
Right.
So, I
Right.
mean, it's, again, nothing new. Speed, yes, and of course, it's weaponization, right? Now fake news is
Okay.
weaponized.
What
It's
do you mean
weaponized.
by that? What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
I mean that it's not just some random dude sitting in his basement doing it, right? There are state actors, right? There are active disinformation, misinformation actors. There are non-state actors. Matlab ke, on many levels, it is a highly organized, highly developed sort of campaign that is waged. Now, again, that's not necessarily new, right? I mean,
Right.
anytime you
We've
have,
seen
say,
that in print media. We've seen that in television media. So it's not new. But what makes it new this time that it gets its own title, a hashtag called fake news? We never heard that in the TV days or in the print days.
well, we never had hashtags back in those days, na yaar, Faizan?
That's also
I mean,
true.
let's look at it that way, right? Look, I mean, this is the age of instant takes, instant outrage, instant hot takes, whatever, right? I mean, a news breaks, you're supposed to have a solid opinion on it within 2.5 seconds, right? Now,
Yeah.
when you're dealing with that kind of thing, and also you will note that when does the most fake news proliferate? When something big happens, when there's some kind of massive developing story, that's a really good time to throw in a whole bunch of stuff and see what sticks. We end up believing it. A lot of people end up believing it because of pre-existing biases, right? For example, if I'm inclined to believe, and this is not a personal attack. If I'm inclined to believe that, like, bald people are intrinsically evil, like, let's just say, because, like, I mean,
No, we're not.
you're just bad. That's fake news. That's fake news. I mean, let's
Right.
just say that
Right.
I believe that you're just bad people, right? I mean, jiska dhan jai wo matlab, serial killer kisam ka banda hai. So anytime I see any
Yeah.
news that is detriment, that goes against bald people, I'll be like, yaar, dekho, mujhe to pehle se pata tha, I mean, that's what I've been saying all these years. Finally, people are listening. Open your eyes, So there is that. Now that you can turn that into a political bias, you can turn that into a
Right.
religious bias, you can turn that into anything. If you're, and also, unfortunately, we are biologically hardwired that way. Because, and I'm not making this up, I actually like read this somewhere. Okay, if you, for example, come across information that supports your previously existing views, you
Right.
get high from it. And I mean that in the literal sense. Your brain sends a shot of dopamine, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
यार देख आपके तेरे भाई ने तुझे
Mm-hmm.
पहले ही बोला था कि ऐसा ही होता है, you know. So that happens. Now
Yeah.
try to talk a guy who's high down and tell him कि यार, you know, all that cocaine you're doing is not very good for you. He's not going to listen. He'll be like, क्या मतलब है तेरा भाई,
Yeah.
मतलब बिल्कुल set. You know, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah.
It was just demonstrative.
This is
I'm not,
digital. Digital, you're allowed to do
Flash a
everything.
disclaimer: drugs are bad for you, and you shouldn't be doing them. You know, whether it's like methamphetamine or fake news, they're both drugs. They're both drugs.
But and so you're saying that news that reinforces your existing belief acts like drugs, and that's
Absolutely.
why it perpetuates that desire to keep pushing it and keep it going. Now, you also made a point that when there's a major event, that's when there's a greater likelihood for fake news. So let's say we were just talking about this right now. Beirut happened yesterday. There was this big blast in the whole city, and you were just talking about how 250,000 people are displaced. That gives us an opportunity for fake news. I mean, I heard and I read random things like this militant group did something, some people saying it's the firecrackers that went off. How does a journalist or news media tackle that right up front, especially in the digital world where everything's instantaneous?
First of all, you take a breath, right? You take a long cleansing breath, and you realize that you don't have to obsessively, like some kind of psychopath, retweet and like everything that comes your way, right?
Right.
You have to do a little bit of mental gatekeeping. Okay? Now,
Mhm.
guilty as charged. There's been often it happens that in these kind of events, one does screw up, right? That's natural. That's
Mhm.
normal. One should learn from it, right? I mean, for example, if there's something coming at you, right?
Mhm.
Consider the source. If you can't, and now we're talking about purely in a breaking news situation, like say the one that took place last night when this whole event took place. You take
Right.
a breath, you wonder, where is this coming from? Is this coming from an official source? If so, quote the source, right?
Okay.
Uh, I've seen a lot of people just copy paste a message and post it as if it's coming from them. यार तू मतलब तुम चीचा बत्नी में बैठे हुए हो, तुम्हें नहीं पता कि बैरूत में क्या हो रहा है यार. I mean, you
Right.
don't know what's happening in Bhai Pheru, for God's sake. You haven't left your
Right.
house in the last month, Abdul. You know, so my point is कि like, how can you make that kind of claim? Also, journalistically, इसको कहते हैं हम हाथ पैर बचा के काम करो, right? Because
Right.
अगर, for example, I get a quote from some random person, I will attribute that quote to them. ताकि अगर like in a couple of hours that just goes south, I'll be like, yeah, look, I didn't say I said it. I said this guy said it.
Yeah,
You know
you
what I
get
mean?
deniability. Exactly.
It's not just deniability. It's also just that's basic journalistic practice.
Right.
Reportedly, allegedly, according to X, Y, Z. You know. So these things have to be done. You have to do some gatekeeping. I mean, I'm not by any means saying that everyone needs to do this, but if you're going to call yourself a journalist and you'd like कि मेरी थोड़ी सी मार्केट में इज्जत रहे, बचे, जो मतलब
तो
कमी
इसका
है.
मतलब है कि the things that you're talking about means कि हमारा WhatsApp time usage बिल्कुल ही zero पे आ जाएगा यार, अगर हम ये
यार,
चीजें करना शुरू कर दें, क्योंकि
ऐसा
सारी
है.
फेक न्यूज तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि वो WhatsApp के थ्रू आती है.
You know, man, that's yes, absolutely. Because there was only one time I remember, you know, people add you to all of these crazy groups, right? And you know, there's like 300 people in there. I don't know how you're supposed to have any kind of conversation. It's just people posting stuff at a wall. The one time that I actually, and this was a politician who will remain unnamed, he posted something on a WhatsApp group, and I'm like, yeah, he's a pretty respectable politician. He might know what he's talking about. I quoted that, and that sort of blew up in my face in a minor way. उसके बाद मैंने कसम खाई कि यार कुछ भी करना है ना, लेकिन you cannot take it at face value. You know, you must not. I mean, you have to do your due diligence. What I
So
love
then you're telling me you're saying that it's better to pause, take a breath, verify the source.
yeah,
rather than be the first to break the story. But in our
Absolutely.
society, and
Yeah.
not just on digital or television, the first to break the story, okay, whether it's news media or the first to cut the FIR, is the one who wins. That's how our society rewards people.
Yes, that is an unfortunate thing. Yes.
How do you overcome that as a
You can't
journalist, as
really
an
overcome
individual?
it. You can't overcome it. Look, I mean, it's my personal belief. Okay, I mean, from speaking purely for myself, and I completely concede what you just said. This is how it is. हाँ मतलब मैंने हमने बाजी ले ली. ये मतलब
बिल्कुल.
बूंदाबांदी की खबर हमने 2.5 सेकंड पहले दी थी. हम जीत गए. You know? Okay, so I mean, by all means, यार खुश हो जाओ. I
हाँ.
would rather, and this doesn't always happen this way, I would rather be right than be first, you know, or let me just say, I would rather be second than be horribly wrong, you know.
Hmm.
Koi fark nahi padega. And I have noticed one thing, again, it's small, but, gives me some hope, that if you come a little later, you wait till everybody's screwed up all over the place, and then very respectfully, you come in and be like, yeah, dekho, ye khabar aayi thi, but the fact is that this didn't happen this way. So then you do get like, कि sir आप ही हैं जो सच बोलते हैं, बाकी तो सब लिफाफा हो रहे हैं. I mean, and which is also like an
Right.
extreme reaction. But I find that's better. I think that's a better way to do it.
So if you're coming late to the party, you better be the most equipped with information, right? So the only way, if you're not going to be first, you be right and be comprehensive.
I would prefer that. I would prefer that. Also, I'm
Hmm.
lazy, so it's difficult for me to be first in like anything, So I'd rather like do the whole turtle other than the hair.
Right.
It's the turtle and the hair, man.
That's
It's the
true. That's
turtle and the
true.
hair.
Turtle and
Yeah,
the hair. That's a very good example.
yeah,
So
yeah,
would
yeah.
you
Just
say
thought of
that
that. I
this
don't know why I didn't think of that
would you
earlier.
say that this problem is this solution, sorry, can be applied to digital because digital is fleeting. The thing with digital versus print, I mean, and everyone says print is dying, but the great value of print is once it's printed and it's out there and circulated, you can't retract it, you can't delete it, you can't take it down. It's
Yeah,
there, it's in someone's hands.
it's there.
Digital, you can just delete it from the site, you can hide it, you can change the sentence, you can tweak the news, no one will know. You've read something, suddenly it's tweaked. I mean, obviously big media houses won't do that, but it can be done. So would you think that the medium of print is still the better journalistic medium
Okay,
versus
but
digital?
okay. I think that's two questions you asked there. The first one was like about well, was not so much a question, of the statement, but I would like to address that. Okay, how do you tackle that on digital? Well, again, I would say that sort of journalistic language is what will save you, right? You add a caveat. ठीक है? Like
Okay.
again, let's go into the same example of a story like happening right now, right? You're going to get initial reports.
Right.
Obviously, you want to you have to print them, right? You have to put that news out there. Okay, it's not कि like
Right.
नहीं नहीं मैं 2 घंटे बाद इसकी खबर दूंगा. No, you obviously you have to update it, but then you add a caveat, right? And that
Okay.
should be, this is a developing story. We will keep adding updates, and if, for example, and by the way, and this does happen, major media houses also do this कि चुपके से फिर वो चीज हटा दी, लेकिन
Right.
लोग बहुत तेज है यार, वो 1 सेकंड में स्क्रीनशॉट ले लेते हैं.
Ah,
And
yeah,
then
तो है.
that's even more embarrassing. So if you make a change, the
Hmm.
correct thing to do is, or there's no shame involved in this, right?
Right.
Um, you add a line that initially we wrote this, but then subsequent information tells us that this was perhaps not 100% accurate. या इसमें ये change है. तो अगर change करे हो वो लिख लो. People understand it,
Hmm.
and I've found that increasingly people won't be like, गलत थे तुम,
Hmm.
मतलब मर जाओ. नहीं, people are like, okay, that's cool. I understand how
Right.
that works. Now you were asking, sorry, what was the question about print?
Talking about whether print, for these reasons, right? Because digital is still very editable and very fluid. For these reasons, is still print the best medium for journalistic reporting, or is it migrating to digital? Because
Look,
my
I
point was
think,
that print you
I
can
think,
document.
yeah, I think that there's a very thin line now, right? And this is something I'm genuinely like, I wonder about. कि अब देखो, for example, I've got a newspaper here, right? Now, that same story is also being consumed on a digital platform, right? So is it a print story now? Or is it a digital story? Or does that not even matter, right? I mean, granted that once it's printed, like, and if there's like a correction to be made, they're not going to send a dude over to somebody's house with like blanco and a pen saying कि यार ये जो हमने
Right.
20,000 लिखा था नहीं असल में 25,000 है इसको हम मिटा के दोबारा लिख दो सॉरी गलती हो गई.
Right.
You know, you can do that on digital. I don't think it's so much the medium that really matters anymore, because you're looking at an integrated medium here, right? Like, for
Correct.
example, there's an in-depth story in, say, Dawn newspaper. Okay, fine. At the same time, there are news reports on, say, the Dawn TV channel, right? Now,
Right.
when the digital version of that comes out, it may incorporate both, right? It will have the newspaper story, say it's like a 2,000 word story, it's really in depth, and it may also have, embedded video from the TV coverage. It may even have embedded tweets as comments on it.
Right.
So now, is that a digital story, a print story, or a TV story, or is it some kind of chimera? So for me, when people talk about, but this is the future, that is the future, it's more of an integrated future, isn't it? I mean,
Right, but it's integrated till as long as the audience for print is alive. I mean, if you look at print circulation numbers and print
yeah,
consumption, I mean, it's a medium that is not being consumed the way it was consumed, let's say 10, 20 years ago. Yes, I consume print every morning, and my interest in print is to see how the headlines are placed where they are.
Yeah.
What is the editor thinking is important. And then you go in digital and see, okay, what's important there? What is the message? But the question is, how many of the 20-year-olds, the teens, are consuming information or news through print? And therefore, the question arises, how long will this continue to be an integrated news medium? Shouldn't we just eventually switch over to digital anyways?
No, okay, definitely. Look, okay, as a medium, paper, I mean, let's just say paper newspapers and so on and so forth. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think that, I mean, okay, I understand that people have been sounding the death knell for print for a long time now, but they're pretty much right. Okay. You are going to see more people migrate to a digital first thing. My concern isn't like कि यार मुझे कागज से इश्क नहीं है. ठीक है? I mean, let's put it that way. I want the quality of information, right? Now, if digital can give me the same quality of information, ठीक है? I mean, look, there should be the small stories and little snippets and little whatever tickers for people who want to consume that. But if I want to consume something in depth, something long form, I would like to have that option too. Okay. What I've seen, Faizan, if I may just share like a personal observation, is when we used to work in TV, when I used to work in TV, say like, 10, maybe 15 years ago or something like that. I don't know exactly how long, but when we used to make, say, the 9 p.m. headlines, right, which are arguably your, most important prime time headlines, right? I used to then like go home like sort of, a little bit anxious. Okay, did I make the right call in terms of, the prioritization of the news? And if the next morning I pick up the newspaper and, like you said, look at what the editor was thinking, right? What the placement was. And if that more or less paralleled my news sense at the 9 p.m. bulletin, I would be like, I got it right. Okay. Now, unfortunately, it's happening the other way around. I know this, that in many newspaper offices, they look at the 9 p.m. headlines to determine what the next morning's paper is going to be.
Wow, okay.
You see what I'm saying, right? So that is a problem for me, because say, TV news is very consumable and so on and so forth, but it cannot be as a function of the medium. I mean, this is not like, oh my God, they're lazy, they don't want to do their job. But the function of the medium does not lend itself towards long form. No? It does not lend itself towards something incredibly in depth. I mean, for that, then you need a special report or a documentary.
No, so why do you say that? I mean, digital, you're talking about digital not being able to lend itself to long form.
Television.
Television, fair enough. Television, you have to do 20 or 40-minute chunks, and then obviously you need space for advertising. That's it.
Right, exactly. So that's a problem, because still, for example, right, I mean, if I have to research something, okay, something happens and I have to research, my research does not comprise of me watching television clips. Okay. Unless I want to say locate a specific sound bite.
But why is that? And so walk me through this. If video content became searchable, which it can be, and you can tag pieces of content, wouldn't you research by watching videos? Why is research still done by reading?
Because the devil is in the details.
Those details cannot be found through video content.
There are, but they won't be to that extent, right? Okay, so yes, suppose I'm looking up, okay, what happened in so and so court case in 2013. The 40-second television coverage of that isn't going to tell me, man. You know what I mean? I mean, suppose I want to look up
13, paragraph 3, line 4 might give you an answer, but
sir, that's right. That's right. I mean, look, land scams, right? I mean, let's say Siberia, right? If I wanted to look that up, nobody reports on it. I will have to go to Dawn's newspaper coverage of it. I mean, that goes for a lot of other things, right? Various court cases. I mean, देखो, for example, अगर मुझे Panama case, नवाज शरीफ के Panama case पर research करनी है, I'm not going to watch hours and hours of hysterical television footage, which really will just comprise of various members of political parties shouting at each other. What is that?
Without not knowing the topic at all.
Yeah, what good will it do for me to know कि चौधरी परवेज इलाही ने इसको चोर बोला था 1999 में? क्या मतलब क्या मेरा क्या जाएगा यार?
No value.
I will have to look it up in print. So if print dies, and digital does not take up that kind of slack, then I'm going to have a lot of problems. I'm not happy about that.
So then we've got a case of, when I just saw a message on one of our Facebook pages, we've got a case not of fake news but of pushed news, because then the news is what you are primed to see and are interacting with, and through AI, engines that are already built into, the social media platforms, they will continue to show you more of what you want to see, what your habit shows you. And therefore, depth is lost.
Absolutely.
So sprint is lost, depth and the details are gone. And so where do they reside if digital does not take them out? That's your point.
I would add something to that. That is far more dangerous and far more sinister than I think we give it credit, right? Because what it creates is the illusion of consensus. Right, it creates an echo chamber. Okay, like suppose I watch XYZ video, right? I mean, because it's like this, right? If I watch a video of a car crash, the algorithm thinks, hey, this guy loves car crashes. Let's keep giving him car crashes, to the point. And I'm stretching the analogy. I think कि यार अगर मैं घर से निकलूंगा तो गाड़ी का एक्सीडेंट हो जाएगा. देखो कितने वीडियोस हैं car crashes के यार. So it creates an artificial reality. The algorithm creates an artificial reality for you. And how often have you seen this, right? Say you take white right-wing terrorism. You take any kind of extremist terrorism. What are the vectors of it, yeah? You have a guy sitting in Oklahoma getting radicalized, not by like the Oklahoman next to him, right? He's not going to some Oklahoma madrasa and getting radicalized with 20 of his buddies. He's getting radicalized by some dude sitting in his mother's basement in New Zealand. Who, on the other hand, is getting radicalized by some white supremacist in South Africa, right? And because they're interacting with each other, and because they're all reading the same stuff, they're all watching the same stuff, that becomes your reality. And this is a phenomenon that is known as the daily me. Right? If I'm sitting here right now, I can tailor all the media I consume to my pre-existing set beliefs, which has the effect of reinforcing those beliefs. The people on those comment boards are speaking my language. So again, and all of that brings us back to, this is your virtual cocaine, right? You're getting high
dopamine rush.
You're getting high off this stuff, and you're not alone. There's 1,000 other equally psychotic or borderline psychotic people getting high with you. So you're like, hey, I'm okay. I'm not alone. And that is what you have to watch out for.
And so there was this phenomenon, and I think what you're talking about kind of reminds me of that. Was it Canon, which talks about this QAnon, right?
Yeah.
And that's that same phenomenon. People sitting in their basement, 16 hours a day, they're on the internet, and they believe Bill Gates released COVID, and Trump is going to save the world, and it's like this weird theory.
And
And
Hillary
there was a
Clinton
BBC.
is a Satanist, and children are being
Exactly.
abused with Comet Pizza. Yeah.
And so you're saying that all of this belief is linked to the release of dopamine at the
Well,
end of the
no,
day.
that's one factor. That's one factor. I mean, I'm not trying to be reductionist, right? That is
Right.
one factor. The other factor also is, क्या कहते हैं, social affirmation. If I'm sort of saying that correctly, um, again, you're not alone. Now, QAnon is almost like a cult. I
It
mean,
is.
I sort of went into their like little discussion
Mm-hmm.
chats and stuff like that. It is a cult. This is going to be the new church. This is the virtual church of QAnon. And what is that? What is the religion? What is a cult?
The
It's a set of shared beliefs, right?
I love that, the virtual church of QAnon.
Yeah,
Got it.
that's what it is. And you watch, man, this is going to get bigger and bigger. This is going to get bigger and bigger.
Mm.
And it's kind of cool in a way because it is so dystopian. It's so dystopian. It's you almost like, again, it's like watching a car crash in slow motion and you're like, wow,
Wow. Yeah, exactly. It is.
this is just
But
crazy.
the challenge here is that, look, again, with digital fleeting short form content primed to you and your needs, and so if you're consuming this kind of content, they'll show you more. How, if print disappears, and is that the plan, that you disappear the one medium that gives you the details that you can research to counter the running narrative that is programmed by AI? Now, if you take away that medium, we're pretty screwed.
Yeah, we are. When you say that it's the plan, I mean, again, obviously, you're not saying like there's some like secret group of Illuminati sitting in like a smoky room, drinking the blood of infant children and generally, huh?
I said, or am I?
Oh, are you? See, you've been on the QAnon page too, man. Anyway,
I
my
was just
point
doing
is,
research.
I think it's heading in that direction. Certainly, it's being helped to go in that direction. Because honestly, what major propaganda actor wouldn't want that? I mean, if you can control what people consume, you essentially you have an inroad into their mind, right? You can get them where they live. I mean, what state wouldn't want that? Honest to God,
What
think about it.
advertiser? The real question: what advertiser wouldn't want that? I mean, forget state for a second.
And this is also advertising, isn't it? I mean, this is all
It is.
it's marketing in a sense. It's marketing in a sense. So yeah, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want that, man? I mean, you think I wouldn't want like to create like an army of 1 million zombies walking around saying Zarrar is amazing, obviously I want that, man.
Well, you've got that. You've got a pretty active Twitter account with a huge audience.
Have you seen the kind of like stuff? Anyway, we're not even going to get into that, man. I mean, I actually got a death threat because like I said that like I thought Heath Ledger's performance as Joker was overrated. That was like my high point. And the guy's like, tum zameen pe boj ho, tum mar jao. And I'm like, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, are you related to Heath Ledger?
Yeah.
Was he your boyfriend? I mean, so yeah, that was a little extreme, I thought, I mean, threaten me with death over your political beliefs, at least I can respect that. But this was a bit much, it's like, you don't like boys to men, I hope you die. that did
You might actually find someone, you might find someone in the comments eventually who say that, man, Boys to Men were awesome. They got it going on.
No disrespect to Boys to Men, I mean, but apparently like the Heath Ledger stands are a lot more militant.
Yeah, fair enough. But I mean, so, I'm still struggling with the notion that if, let's say, print does walk away, how do you, like, let's assume a world in which print loses its audience, right? And then it's no longer commercially viable because the people who read it are now all dead and everyone younger than is all on digital. So how do you take that? I mean, look, it's an inevitability, right?
Yeah.
So how do you take that audience and how do you take that content, right? Or forget the audience for a second. How do you take that content and make sure that style of content lives on in the remaining two mediums? As you said, it cannot live on in video, so TV is out. TV is too fleeting. You can't research it. It's too skinny. How do we create a digital publishing medium that would allow for the elements of print to survive well after its survival?
I think that's happening though. I mean, it's not like that's not happening. Excuse me, you will find a lot of sort of web publications. I mean, there's Caravan in India. There's other like the National. There's a bunch that do that kind of stuff. Again, see, look, for me, it's not so much the medium, right? The medium is changing. The medium is evolving. For me, it's the message and the content, right? And they go again. I mean, if instead of print, we say the written word, right? Let's talk about the written word. Now, the word can be written on a piece of paper. The word can be written on your computer screen, right? You can as easily consume a 3,000 word in-depth story on, say, child abuse or whatever, what have you, on a digital platform as you could on a physical piece of paper, right?
Right.
So, I mean, again, I think that like this debate is going to have to shift from print and digital to in-depth and shallow. For me, that's
so
the
it would
concern.
be. So then maybe it's a digital versus TV, because TV can't be in depth, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but I would not advise anyone to again, look, it has its uses. Okay. I mean, this is not a TV. I'm not trying to engage in a TV bashing exercise. It's kind of like this, dude. You like French fries. You like French fries?
Who doesn't like French fries? I love French fries.
There are some deviants out there, Faizan. I just
They're,
wanted to make
they're
sure.
probably the people who get excited about your views on Heath Ledger's Batman performance.
हाँ, I mean, इस तरह के कुछ वाजिब कत्ल लोग होते हैं दुनिया में. You know what I mean? Don't like French fries. I mean, what's wrong with you? But anyway, we're not going to get into that. That's a divisive conversation, clearly. You like French fries. I like French fries. This doesn't mean that I want to have that you can or should have French fries for 3 meals a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if TV is the French fries, every once in a while you need to have a balanced meal, as well. In terms of breaking news, in terms of live developments, of course there's TV, and of course you watch the 9 o'clock bulletin, you will get a sort of 360 view, hopefully, if it's a good bulletin, and you will get informed. Then you might find, and I'm just speaking purely for myself, I might see a TV a show and I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. Let me look further into this. That will then lead me, from link to link to link to link to hopefully something long form that I can get some actual content out of, So I definitely don't think that people should just simply purely only consume television news. But at the same time, I mean, people shouldn't just only consume Twitter as a news source. I mean, you need to go a little bit beyond that if you actually are interested in getting to the bottom of things or finding out, and I'm not saying that everybody needs to be even or that everyone should be, but for those who are limiting yourself to one medium, I mean, you're doing yourself a disservice, really, and you're doing your viewers a disservice, in my opinion.
So it sounds like, I like the French fry analogy. I'm going to take it a step further. What you're saying is like, in America, they have this concept of a full balanced plate where you have carbs, you have protein, you have fat, you have fiber on a plate. You're saying that news media should be consumed from various mediums to get a fulfilling, wholesome, let's say, meal of news. Some of it should come from digital, and within digital, let's say, some from publications, some from social, some from, let's say, other sources, maybe even YouTube. And then there's some from TV, some from print, and only then do you have a holistic view of the world that is a little bit more accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sums it up perfectly. Basically, जो मैं आधे घंटे में बात कर रहा था, वो आपने 2 मिनट में कर दिया यार. What is this? I mean, airtime has to be filled, Faizan. You can't like just barrel ahead like that, yaar. But anyway, but yes, absolutely right. Absolutely.
So now tell me this: in Pakistan, do you think, so obviously different markets behave differently, right? Do you think digital could ever surpass TV? TV has a mass appeal, and even till now, the advertisers pay a premium for television advertising because they give you the biggest audience. But do you think that table, and so digital has surpassed print, that's clear, right? But can digital potentially surpass TV as the right medium for news?
Okay, again, now how are we defining digital? because now here I get genuinely confused, right? I'm not a technical person, so sometimes the nomenclature throws me off.
Right.
Okay, suppose I'm watching a TV channel, not on TV, but on my phone from that TV channel's live streaming or on their website. Now, am I consuming
That's
television or am I consuming digital? What am I doing?
that's consuming television, because that stream and that beam and that piece of content was created for an audience sitting in front of a television. Yes, they're choosing to broadcast it on digital, but
Okay.
had that same stream been sliced and diced into, let's say, a 30-second or 1 minute filler video that was plugged into a publishing platform of the
Okay.
said news channel site, then that's digital.
In that case, no. I don't think that digital is any time. I mean, I'm talking about Pakistan. I think Pakistan will still remain very TV heavy. This is, and in fact, the I mean, that like mobile phone penetration in Pakistan is pretty intense, right? I mean, uh,
Yeah.
a lot of people have mobile
140
phones.
million, I think. 140
Right?
million plus. I
Okay,
think it's roughly, last I remember, it's 140 odd million. Yeah.
so
And
that's
then
a
there's
lot.
about 70 odd or 70 million plus 3G, 4G. That means data connections on mobile, which is pretty big. It's more than
That is
most
huge.
countries.
That is huge. And you'll note that people are actually doing that, And I mean, even if we talk about the clips, right? I mean, certain clips go viral, but they are television clips. So in a sense, you're still
Yeah.
viewing television. So no, and I mean, frankly speaking, I mean, again, I don't have the numbers. You might have a way better idea about this. Um, has digital spend actually overtaken print advertising now? No, no. So you can't
Print,
even.
for print, sorry. So TV does about 40 odd billion a year. Digital is at about 20 odd now. Print is, if I know my numbers correctly, print is somewhere there or a little bit below, if I remember correctly. Radio was around 7 billion. So, where I think we've almost crossed print is what I would be comfortable
Okay, so
saying.
again, so abhi tak to print hasn't even died now. So I think it's way
Yeah.
premature for us to talk about television. Look, again, I mean, I don't know what the future will bring. I don't even know what I'm having for dinner. Frankly speaking, or if I'm going to have dinner at all. Um, but I think that you're going to be looking at some kind of hybrid news solutions coming up. In the future, I think you're already moving in that direction. And
Hmm.
I mean, it should be interesting. I mean, I'll tell you what I'm
Hmm.
worried about. I'm worried about like these. Like I saw this like virtual anchor on Chinese television, and I'm like, yaar, ye to na karo na, yaar. You know, I mean,
Okay, that's the first for me. What? Tell me about that. So, is it
oh
actually a
man,
holographic, like?
something is. I don't think it's a holograph. He's like a CGI dude, and he's sitting there and he's like reading the news. And at this
Wow.
point in
Okay.
time, he's pretty basic. But
Yeah.
in time, I think you could you could add emotion to it. You could do all kinds of stuff, man. So that
Right.
for me, that's my Skynet. You know, I mean, I would
Yeah.
go back in time. Like I'm Sarah Connor, man. I'm Sarah Connor, and that's my Skynet, dude. I will
Right.
destroy that because ये मतलब तुम मेरी रोजी रोटी पे लात मार रहे हो बॉस ऐसा कोई सीन नहीं है मतलब पाक चीन दोस्ती जिंदाबाद पाक चीन दोस्ती
Yeah.
जिंदाबाद but this is a line. This is a line that
नहीं
you
कर
must not.
सकते. Journalists have the one thing that, let's say, other industries probably don't. Journalism has. They have an audience and they have a captive voice. And so I don't see this, or I don't think it should perpetuate into taking over the way, let's say, robots took over the auto industry over the last 100 years. So maybe that, this is just a one-off thing.
I hope
But
no. I hope
who
so.
knows? Who knows?
I hope so.
But so, coming back to sort of, going back a little bit in time, I have one question for you. How did you end up in this? Like, you're in the middle of journalism, you're at the cusp of sort of seeing all of the three mediums converge. Was this always the plan, back in
No,
the early days?
no. There was never a plan. That's,
So is that
I
if this is the byproduct of not having a plan? Is that the the answer?
I don't. Okay, I honestly, I mean, I wish I could tell you, okay, like, when I was a child and I opened up my first newspaper, the smell of the ink, and, I fell in love. No, it wasn't like that. Look, I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd, right? And, I've always been a reader, right? So,
Hmm.
I mean, when I was a kid, I used to like, and I mean, history, politics, not so much politics, but history, current affairs, why are things the way they are, So, I mean, that always interested me. And,
Hmm.
because, I mean, okay, my secret, like, dream was always, to be like a writer, to be an author. Okay.
Okay.
So, I started writing the odd column here, the odd column there, and sometimes I'd submit them, and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
shockingly they'd get printed, and I'm like, wow, these guys have like no standards,
Mm-hmm.
at all. I mean, they're printing my crap, and I mean, but
Mm-hmm.
I tell you, man, I mean, the first time you see your name as a byline, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're like,
Yeah.
damn,
That's the
you
that's the dopamine
walk down,
again. Yeah.
you walk down the street and like you look around and like, how come nobody's asking me for my autograph, dude? Like I wrote this, 2 paragraph piece on like the Stevie Flower show, like, I mean, come on, why aren't I famous
Right.
yet? So
Yeah.
that happened, and then like one thing led to another, and then when electronic media came up, because I'd been working with the News International as a sub editor, and this is why I love sub editors. Okay,
Okay.
I'm a big fan of sub editors because sub editors are the unsung heroes of the newsroom. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, oh yeah, I know, like all of these like analysts and opinion column writers and reporters, they get all the credit, but it's the sub editor who's like done all the tightening of the nuts and the
Right.
bolts crap,
They
man.
make the editors look
We don't
good,
get
huh?
enough respect. We don't get enough respect, man. We need respect. Some editors of the
Right.
world, break your shackles or whatever. क्या कहा था मार्क्स ने? जो भी कहा था उसने, वही बात.
Right.
So yeah. So
So,
anyway, so
and
that
and so you're saying, is that somewhere a place where someone should want, anyone looking to get into journalism, but whatever it is, digital print, anything,
I
that's where
wouldn't
they
take
should
anybody
start?
to journalism.
You wouldn't tell them to get into
No,
journalism.
no. Why
Why is
would you?
that?
Why would you do that to yourself, man? Why?
Because you want the right news out there. You want the truth out there. What was the movie that's the line from? The truth is out there and you want to find it.
You can't handle the truth. वो वाला.
You can't-
हाँ, वो
Yeah.
तो एक अलग चीज थी ना. वो तो मतलब वो that was different. But
So
me,
you
my
wouldn't recommend any budding, these, everyone's in media colleges across the country. You wouldn't recommend them to get into a career in journalism? You don't think
yeah,
there's a future in that in Pakistan?
Faizan, I mean, अब मतलब अब मैं बहुत ज्यादा इस पे कह भी नहीं सकता.
Yeah, there's yeah.
वो एक black widow घूम रही है मेरे घर के इर्द गिर्द. देखो.
Don't worry, there are video cameras everywhere in many schools across the
I
city.
mean, look. I mean, you know what the situation is like
Yeah.
currently where we live, right?
So so your view is basically it would be because of the constraints around us.
The constraints, and also, I mean, look, you got to make a living, right? You got to make a
Yeah.
living, and I mean, and of course, a lot of this is a factor of the general economic environment, and obviously, a lot of it is also a factor of the sort of business model or lack thereof that
Mhm.
various media owners came up with or didn't come up with, for that matter.
Right.
And then, of course, there is pressure.
Right.
There are punitive measures
There's
taken.
pressure everywhere. That's around the world. Every journalist around the world faces that.
Yeah, well, there's pressure and then there's pressure. Like, again, dekho na yaar. I mean, like, look, man, right now this is like a boxing match with like both my hands tied behind my back. So I can't even
Right.
block, because just
Right.
to say some stuff that I can't say. I mean, how can I talk about something that I can't talk about?
You wink. You're like, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, look, I mean, by all
So
means,
the
look,
better choice. So I mean, what would you recommend? Because look, I've come across a lot of these kids who are studying journalism. They're doing media studies. And if would the recommendation be try to go abroad to seek this career path? I mean, or switch or stay within this, but do this other thing that has fewer constraints.
I think
What would that be?
I think that. Look, again, look, there is a thing called the tyranny of the present, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that, like, we are here in this moment, in this hour, in this day, and we really can't see beyond that, right? I don't know. I mean, maybe a year, maybe 2 years from now, maybe 3 years from now, the situation will be completely different. Maybe it'll be better. Maybe it'll be worse. I don't know. This is just me being my cynical self. I don't want to discourage. I mean, and honestly, if I were to be honest, I mean, we do need good people in there. Yeah? We need good people in there. I mean, and not just we, as in like, the journalist community. There is no such thing, Okay, there is no
Mm.
bradri. Okay, most of us
Mm.
hate each other. Um,
Mm.
I mean, and that's par for the course, right? That's okay. That's okay. We
Yeah.
hate people like the way we hate each other. I can guarantee you that. Okay.
Right.
कभी
Right.
मैं ऑफर बात करो मैं तो बताऊंगा सबके बारे में. I'm kidding. I
मैं
love.
बस लैपटॉप बंद करके आ रहा हूँ, फौरन आ रहा हूँ. I'm just
हाँ
coming
हाँ.
right now.
we'll talk WhatsApp पे बात करेंगे WhatsApp पे.
WhatsApp पे जरूरी है.
WhatsApp पे बात करेंगे. But that's safe for now. So anyway, look, I mean, you do need people, and the country needs good people in there. You know,
Yeah.
it's just that you got to get the basics right, man. You know, I mean, a lot of people think कि like, you know, मैं बस आज graduate करूंगा, कल मैं interview दूंगा, and then the next day I will be a prime time anchor. Dude, that stuff is harder than it looks. Okay. I'm not saying कि like, for example, okay, you put down 4 politicians on a panel discussion. A trained chimpanzee can do that. Sorry to say. Okay, anyone can do that. I've done those, and they are the easiest
Right.
work I've ever had. You just show up 5 minutes before. You just make sure you
Yeah.
don't make any huge screw ups. You give an emotional introduction के नाजरीन आजकल पाकिस्तान एक नाजुक मोड़ पर है और हम देख रहे हैं कि मुल्क की तामीर की बजाय सियासतदान सिर्फ एक दूसरे को तनकीद का निशाना बन रहे हैं. ऐसा कैसे चलेगा? And then you have them
So
fight.
that's not debate. You're
Yeah,
telling me
you
that's
have
not
to fight each
journalism?
other. You take a break
That's
every
not what.
once in a while. You go home, man. You get paid. You know, you
And
make
so that's
back.
not journalism? That's not what you go to school for?
I never went to school for this stuff, man. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Fair
I'm
enough.
an MBA, believe it or not. You know,
Sorry, I missed that.
never mind. Move on. Move on.
So now tell me, I'm going to ask you one last thing.
Go on.
How bright is our future?
What?
How bright is our future?
I mean, there's no way I can answer that. Look,
relative to this industry, chalo. I'll keep it specific to the industry.
how bright is the
future of the journalism or media industry in the way you're seeing things?
I think it's pretty dismal.
It's bad.
I think for now it's pretty dismal. I mean,
what would we need to do to snap out of it?
I certainly wouldn't be doing any expansion. Excuse me. I certainly wouldn't be doing any expansion or launching any very ambitious projects right now. Right now, I'd be in survival mode, man. You know, I think that's pretty.
And is it because the government stopped the advertising media spends or reduced them significantly? Is that a big function of it?
It's a function of it, sure. But look, again, there is no one single factor at play here, right? And also, look, you are looking at, and I've been saying this for years, you are looking at a broad right-wing authoritarian drift the world over now, right? You are not going to stay immune to that. What makes you think you're immune to that? Look around you. Okay, and I'm not saying look at Belgium, oh Switzerland में देखो, Sweden में क्या हो रहा है, बाहर में जाए वो सब यार. Look around your immediate neighborhood. You have Iran over there. That's like, bastion of the free press, right? You have Afghanistan. Okay, and we all know what the situation there is like. You have China, right? Complete control. You have India, in which you have about 7,000 bloody channels, but all singing the same statist right-wing tune, right? And what do you think is going to happen with you in the middle as a little island, huh? Will you think that you're going to have laissez-faire democracy? You think you're going to have complete freedom of expression? You think you're going to have that Voltaire misquote, and it's a misquote because it was Evelyn Beatrice Hall, oh, I may disagree with what you say, but I will fight till the death for your right to say it. None of that is going to happen. Grow up, wake up, man. That's just wishful thinking. You are headed into, a fairly dimly lit abyss. And to acknowledge that does not mean that you are appreciating it or that you're happy about it, right? If I'm driving my car towards a ditch, okay, I can't pretend that it's a bridge. It's a ditch. You are going to fall into it, So that's just lame.
And you will crash.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I think that's
so buy your seatbelt, no? That's what I'm saying.
Fair enough. I think this was good. Great session, Zarrar.
I just depressed myself, man. I just,
Yeah.
yeah,
You just depressed
I'm
me as well. I'm
lie
like,
down
man,
now and like have a cry.
I,
You,
I should sit back. I should go back to finance.
yeah,
Um,
I was
pe-
telling you, man. Did I not tell you?
yeah,
But
yeah.
admit it. Admit it.
People will
I tried
always
telling
need
you years
money, and
ago.
they need someone to manage it. Yeah, I agree. You did
Yeah,
tell me
I
that.
did tell you that. See, Zarrar is
But look, it
right.
was.
That's just what you should know, man.
I think the next time I have you on, because we're not done. There's so much more that needs to be talked about.
Hell
I
yeah.
think that episode Zarar is right, and we're just going to go and talk
Make
about all the things
I
that
want
you're right.
t-shirts, I want t-shirts, and I want mugs. You
Done.
understand? Yeah,
We're gonna get you Zarar is right in mugs, not Easter mugs.
that
Um,
that I'd buy
but
them.
this was, but this was awesome. I loved the candid feedback. I loved the answers. It was always great catching up with you,
Always a
and
pleasure.
thanks a lot for the time. And I will call you back because we're not done with this. There's a whole bunch of questions that I do want to ask you again. You know, I'll WhatsApp call you. And thank you everyone for tuning in to our show, and like and subscribe to our page if you can on YouTube, and check out more content. We have 7 other episodes on our Facebook page. Please take a look. Thanks again, Zudar.
Take care, man.